All right, so we're looking at that way, the way, the way, the way. Now, I want to drive this home. There are passages. Jesus says, I am a set of beliefs. No. We all have a statement of faith, and what's the statement of faith in church? It's a list of things that people are supposed to affirm. We believe da 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 da. We believe da 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 da. But they're when they say the word believe in the statement of faith, they're thinking of affirming all those things. And what I'm telling you is that affirmation of propositions turns the Bible into a closed book to you. That is the wrong disposition, it's the wrong attitude, it's the wrong approach, it's disorientation, it's profane to approach the Bible thinking that it teaches propositional conclusions. I think that every time that comes out of somebody's mouth, I think the Bible teaches no, 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 no. Do not, because you're thinking that the Bible teaches some kind of propositional conclusions that we can, systematically arrange and pick up phrases here and there and rearrange them till we get them in all the right order, and that correct order of all the right phrases constitutes sound doctrine. No, 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 no. It's more like navigating a whitewater rafting river. It's being in attunement with the flow of the water. Isn't that interesting? Heraclitus said, another Christian posted this recently, but they didn't know that Heraclitus had said it. And if they had known Heraclitus had said it, they might reject it because some kind of pagan philosopher said it, even though Heraclitus is also the person from whom the Apostle John got the concept of the Logos. Okay? But he said, you never see the same river twice. Why? Because the water's always flowing through it. It's never the same. It's never ever the same one second as you saw it the last second. It's always something different, but it's the same. But it's the same river. So you can go back, we used to go canoeing when I was a kid, and every once in a while we'd go back to the same river every year, right? It's the same river. I've seen this river before, but I've never seen that river before. No man hath seen God at any time, but if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. You see how that kind of thing works, okay? Both statements are true. I was playing video games last night with my daughter and my wife, and not last night, but I think 2 days ago now. And my daughter is in Alabama. Me and my wife are in Louisiana, and we're all playing video games together. So, like, we're playing Fortnite, and at a particular time, we're in a house in Fortnite, right? And we're all there together, but we're also, almost 200 miles apart. Both are true, you see? And if you were to make statements with today's technology about being apart and together in the same and different at the same time, that would sound like mystical religious language to somebody else. But of course, sometimes technology sounds like magic to some people. There are things, what's perspective, you see? There's a perspective of this world out here, and then there's the virtual perspective of the representatives in the game. This kind of thing. If you've seen me, you've seen the Father, but no man hath seen God at any time. If you look at the river, yeah, I've seen the same river several times, but I never saw that same river. Both are true. Both are true. Depends on how you look at it. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and life. No man cometh to the Father but by me. And so Christianity is never supposed to be a set of beliefs. In Acts 9:2, and desired him letters to Damascus to the synagogues. All these are out of context, but the point, this is Paul's conversion. That if he found any of this way, it's describing what Paul was doing, of this way. What is that way? It's representing people who are following Jesus Christ. Interestingly, Jesus never said worship me, he always said follow me. And I'm not saying it's inappropriate to worship Jesus. What I'm trying to tell you is where the emphasis should be. It should be on some kind of fluidity with procedure and perspective and participation, not on whether, like somebody said, all the different Christian denominations are trying to point at the same thing, like fingers pointing at the moon. But instead of just looking at the moon, we're all arguing over who's got the best finger, okay? And so people are arguing over what's the proper way to worship and all this kind of stuff. Look at what it's trying to point at. Don't be so concerned with uh, the the perceived quality of what's pointing at the moon. Just look at the moon, whatever the thing is pointing at. Acts 18, this man was instructed in the way of the Lord, and Priscilla and Aquila expounded unto him the way of God more perfectly. Notice there is never a set of beliefs associated with Christianity. It's a way. When diverse were hardened, Acts 19:9, but spake evil of that way before the multitude, he departed from them. Acts 19:23, at the same time there arose no small stir about their confession of faith. It's not what it says. Systematic theology, no. Their beliefs, no. Their affirmations, no. That way, it's a way. It's something that you get into like you get into a river. It's not something that you learn a bunch of facts about. So, over here it says, believe not. My wife and I were talking about this yesterday. When diverse were hardened and believed not, she's like, look, it says they believe not there. And I'm like, we talked about this. And like, as your husband, if I believe in you, does that mean that I believe a bunch of facts about you? Does that mean I believe a hypostatic union of the substance of your hair and fingernails being the same thing? I don't have to, it's not that kind of thing. Those things might be facts, but it's not affirmation of those things that puts me in union with my wife at all. When I believe in her, it has absolutely nothing to do with believing a list of facts about her. Okay? It has to do with interacting in a manner of truth and fidelity with her in a dynamic modality of being. It has nothing to do with believing in the same way. When we believe in Jesus Christ and on Jesus Christ, it has nothing to do any more than with your spouse in believing a list of facts about them, even though there are a bunch of narrative facts that we happen to be aware of. But that's not what it means to believe on. I've talked before about Brian Massman. He's been on this channel, and he said that I can share this as an example. He has his own channel where he shares the sermons that he preaches at his church. He's a pastor of a church. And in his testimony, I watched the video, he talks about coming to full awareness and belief in the gospel. He believed all of it, but he wasn't ready to get saved yet. He didn't want to get saved until after the summer, I think is how the story goes. And then later, after the summer, he took all the things that he affirmed as true, like believe Jesus Christ rose from the dead, eternal life through all this kind of stuff. Believed all that. He thought it was true. He affirmed it all, but wasn't ready to commit in fidelity and receive Christ until later. What's the difference, you see? What's the difference? You can have affirmation of all the facts, but without that fidelity to the dynamic flow, there is no healing. That's what the word salvation means, by the way. It means healing. By his stripes we are healed. Okay? And I persecuted the church, Acts 22:4. I persecuted this way unto death. Notice it's a way. It's like he sees it kind of like a path or a road or a river or something like that. Something that's got some flow and movement to it. Okay? Nothing static, no stasis. But this I confess unto thee, that after the way which they call heresy, so worship I the God of my fathers, believing all the things which are written in the law and the prophets. So notice, you believe all the things that are written in the law of the prophets. He's not believing all the conclusions that people have derived from the writings of the law and the prophets. See? We believe the Bible, but we don't need to attach ourselves to the conclusions and propositions that people have derived from it. You see? We need to keep interacting with the Bible in a way that lets us see things in new and fresh perspectives continually and constantly. The way that they call heresy. Okay? Which, I don't feel so bad when the super hyper religious types are calling us heretics on this channel. Like, well, that's just going to happen. In Acts 22:24, when Felix heard of these things, having more perfect knowledge of that way, he deferred them. And then said, when, he goes on. The point is, Christianity it's referred to as a way, the way. It's referred to like that. It is not referred to as a list of beliefs and propositions that people are supposed to affirm. And so there's this concept of John the Baptist. He knew only the baptism of John in Acts 18. And he began to speak boldly in the synagogue, whom when Aquila and Priscilla had heard, they took him unto them and expounded unto him the way of God more perfectly. Now, it kind of sounds like, whenever I've read this in the past, it kind of sounds like they all huddled in a little corner and kind of like a football huddle before a play. I get this idea of something very brief where they take a few propositions and they rearrange them and semantically disambiguate them a little more. Let's put this over here and put this over here. And that idea is a very Cartesian idea. And what people don't realize, if you're a provisionist or a Calvinist or something like that, okay, Arminian, free grace, you are following Cartesian philosophy without realizing it. What that means is you think that we have all these things that we're supposed to affirm, and if I word them correctly and put them all in the right order. When I say semantically disambiguated, that's what I'm talking about. Taking all these phrases, these statements of truth that people, factual statements that we're supposed to believe, make them true by believing them, right? And we put them all in the right order, and that's what constitutes truth. And then anybody at any stage of transformation, regardless of what they can or can't see spiritually, can arrange all the facts properly and have the truth in having mode. That's not how it works, okay? There are certain things that you cannot see until you grow and develop and transform qualitatively into the kind of being that can see and perceive such things, okay? Like we've talked about on this channel before, if you have a child who's just learning to do arithmetic, they're probably not ready for Algebra 3 or calculus or maybe even geometry. Or if they haven't been through geometry and algebra, they might not be ready for calculus at all. Most certainly probably not. Or trigonometry, that kind of thing. It's not no creed but the Bible. It's no creed. So you're thinking the Bible, that statement, no creed but the Bible, still thinks of the Bible as a set of propositions that forms the creed rather than the derived creeds that people write. No. It's a method of interaction. You wouldn't think that people who are really good at navigating a river on a whitewater rafting have a creed, okay? You would think that they have a skill set, okay? And the Bible is a set of provocations designed to afford the development of that skill set. Okay? It is not an alternate list of things to believe as a creed. It's not like that. It's a different kind of thing. Jesus told Paul, it's hard to kick against the pricks. Difficult to resist the goads, as some translations say, that kind of thing, okay? It's like there's constantly these little boundaries and pokes and things in life that are getting at you in a certain kind of way that are designed to afford you a perception of the way in which you should go. Train up a child in what? The way in which he should go, not a list of affirmations. So the Bible is not a creed. You don't say no creed but the Bible. It's more like no creed. You just have Christ, and it's not a creed. You just have the Bible, and it's not a creed. It's a list of provocations when it is interacted with, interfaced with, appropriately, from the correct disposition. It produces a greater perspectival awareness, where one can see and participate and process in a way that is higher fidelity to reality, higher fidelity to God. So when they bring Apollos in here and they expound the way unto him, the way expounded unto him the way of God more perfectly, what we do not have, what might be helpful to have, is if we knew how long that took and what all that involved. And I don't think they just semantically rearranged a bunch of disambiguated propositions. I imagine there was a period of time, maybe he came to stay with them for a while, and he observed the howness. There's probably procedures going on. Is exposing them to their perspective. That's what I tend to think would necessarily have to have happened in that case. And so when Apollos moves on toward Christ, he transcends and includes his ability to speak boldly. He was instructed in the way of the Lord. He transcends and includes that instruction. He's fervent in the Spirit. He transcends and includes that. So, and then he spake and taught diligently the things of the Lord. That diligence, he transcends that, but also includes that diligence, knowing only the baptism of John. Again, transcends and includes that. Yes, I'm using language from integral theory of Ken Wilber. And when you go from one stage to another, like molecules transcend but also include atoms, and he refers to those things as holons, right? And the holons come in the different components of your life, especially that comprise your first half of life wisdom. You don't throw them all away, right? But they become the building blocks through which, as you chip them away, you start to emerge in the butterfly of wisdom that you can possibly be. Okay? And when he was disposed to pass into Achaia, the brethren wrote, exhorting the disciples to receive him, who, when he was come, helped them much which had believed through grace. Now, Calvinists like to jump all over this, ripping it out of context, because they think of grace like the Force in Star Wars, or like there's some kind of magical punctiliar, like Samantha from Frozen, the wind. They think there's some kind of magical thing which has directionality to it. Grace is the baseline of reality in which it's like the peanut butter that we're all swimming in. It's all around us. In him we live, move, breathe, and have our being. Christ, in the beginning, was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, that Logos. And in him was life, and the life was the light of men. And this is that light which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. Okay, this affects everybody. The law came by Moses, but grace and truth came by Jesus Christ. Prologue to John's Gospel, all this stuff is right there. Grace of God that bringeth salvation hath appeared to all men. Grace is not some punctiliar thing that's going around. There's two things that are here. In the book of Acts so far, in chapter 15, just 3 chapters earlier, there were some Pharisees that believed, right? Which should recolor your idea of the outcome of Jesus dealing with the Pharisees during the Gospels. He spoke in parables so that they wouldn't get things, but by the time then you think, oh, there must be reprobate and they're not elect and God's sending them to hell. No, it wasn't appropriate for them to believe at that time for a variety of reasons. But later they believe in the book of Acts, you see. Sometimes the timing is right. Sometimes now is the day of salvation should belong in 2 Corinthians 6 and not in Matthew 13, you see. That kind of thing. So just because somebody is prevented from believing at a certain time does not mean that they are prevented all the time. But what's going on? They were trying to promote the idea in Acts 15 that you had to be circumcised and keep the law of Moses in order to be saved. And they resolve that by saying, nope, it's by grace through faith. Acts 15, 7 through 11 is when Peter talks about this, clears this up. And so what this is a reference to is he's saying, help them much which had believed through grace. In other words, they're believing in Jesus Christ with that information in Acts 15 that we don't have to keep the law or be circumcised anymore, but it's by grace through faith. I'm not pursuing my salvation through Judaism and then adding the idea that Jesus is the Messiah to that, I am just trusting in Christ. I'm not trusting in any of my Old Testament Judaism. And also, believe through grace, specifically in the immediate context, is that what Apollos had just learned from Aquila and Priscilla, having the way of God expounded more perfectly to him, they have that. They're believing in accordance with that, not in accordance with this John the Baptist type of religion.